Walking out into nature at sunrise is one of the best things. I'm always so happy to be there, and there's always this excitement of what the day may bring. I walked out into this wide open marshy area in Florida and started out with this great blue heron just hanging out right in the flowers. Watch this grackle make a flyby. This is what the habitat looked like, and here's why I was there. The snail kites. I've wanted to photograph this species for a few years, and this was my first full-on attempt in a location where I knew there was decent numbers of them. I had kind of happened upon the location trying to photograph something else, and 2 times I visited out there and noticed the snail kites flying around. Tons of other birds and wildlife are out there, including these limpkin, which are always a blast to watch and photograph. But these snail kites stole the show, and I tried my best to keep my attention on them. But look at this vast open space, just watching them fly around. At times there was up to 6 of them on this one particular morning. They're so neat to watch fly around. Check this out as it flies away. Watch the tail. You can see it using it to steer. So a lot of the times they were pretty distant like this. So I did have my teleconverter in. I was shooting at 700mm for all of these. But I don't mind the distant shots, as I'm sure many of you know. But the important thing to me was include some habitat. And so I didn't want them just up against the sky. So when they were further away, or actually it was even more of an issue when they came close, I would try to switch to vertical, so that way I could include some of the grasses and trees below, and then you'd get some cool positions like this when they were going into a dive. And then even better when they'd grab something like that. It was a success. He got a snail. Then he cruised right by with the snail hanging down. It was pretty cool. There goes a gray-headed swamp hen flying below it. That's what just passed. The main thing I had to do was just really keep an eye on these birds. You just had to track them constantly. Most of the time they weren't diving, but you never knew when it was going to happen. And for me, it wasn't always just about getting a dive. Sometimes it's a head-on view like you just saw there, or just a really cool wing position if it flared to even make an attempt. So I was basically just tracking these things pretty much non-stop as they flew around. There's a great example, just a nice wing flare. And you can see how far away they're flying. They are way out there. Here's a tricolored. And then I found this great blue heron way off in the distance and tried to figure out a way to make an interesting image out of it. That's what I came up with. You can see even when the snail kites weren't flying really close or at all, there was always something to watch. It's Florida. There's always something down there. It's the best. The lovely sounds of the egrets. And this was great because I just randomly was tracking that egret just to watch it, not really trying to get any photos, and then boom, passed the snail kite, so I just grabbed on that. And now this part was important. I was really just hoping he would fly by some really good trees here. And so I tracked the bird and tracked the bird, and it's hard to see what's coming up when you're looking through the lens, but if you really pay attention, sometimes you can see it come up to the trees in a really good spot, and you can get a cool silhouette or something like this with a nice palm tree that gives a little sense of place. And there you can see the cattails I was shooting through as well. I thought that could have made for a really neat photo, but I never got just the exact wing position that I needed or just the right placement. This is another one just tracking it. I tried to do a little bit more of a silhouette thing here. So you'll see I went a little bit darker with the exposure, and if you get just the right wing shape, I thought it was kind of cool, even though the bird's flying away. That's a little bit better, showing off the shape of the snail kite. And the sky was real nice and moody back there too. So I was just tracking them, wait for it to hit the right openings in between the trees so I could see it, and then hope some of those wing positions might come out just right. You can hear the meadowlark singing in the background, and if you look at the wide view, you can actually see there's a glossy ibis coming through there. It just passed through the frame. There's those cattails again. Every time they would go through those cattails, I'd try and get something. But like I said, I just didn't get any images I was really happy with. They're so fun to watch though. And every time they were, especially when they were close, you really had to pay attention. Trying my best to stay on the bird. Just hoping it's going to swoop. I'd see them go down for snails really far out, and every time I get a nice close pass like this, I kept thinking, come on, just go down, swoop for me now. And this one started circling, but no swoop. Definitely zeroing in on something though. So I made sure to stay with them. Here we go. Into the dive, going down. Score, he got it. And I got this shot. This was one of my favorites. I ended up cropping horizontal to really show off those purple flowers. I love the feet down, the birds looking down at it. Wings are spread beautifully. Nice soft light. The background just super smooth. I had a nice low perspective, which was important for me. I wanted to get that low perspective look, and I'm really happy with how the shot came out. I continued to fire as the bird took off and got this series of photos that you'll see now. I was so happy I was ready for that one. So often I feel like those are the opportunities that I miss. One nice flare on this one and almost dive. Look at the hover. I'm just hanging in the air there. So cool. So fun to watch these birds. You can see there's a few of them flying around out there. And that's the other thing. Sometimes you'd be looking through the lens and you're tracking one, and then another one would fly in closer and be circling overhead or maybe even dive, and you wouldn't know it. So you really had to keep both eyes open, keep taking your eye out of the camera, scan around, and watch for an opportunity. There you can see it going through. I shot a few of these going through those cattails. They just didn't work out though. I really love the dramatic sky back there and the palm trees. I love when I'm in an area and I can photograph and include trees that kind of help give a sense of place. Look at that dive. Little purple flowers in the foreground there. It worked out nicely. And then check this out. The bird caught a snail, and you'll see what happens next. Cruise by a limpkin. And unfortunately land on the unnatural perch. But in any case, I gave you a zoomed in view, so watch this. You can see him feed on the snail. We're going to pull that whole thing out of there. I found this next part rather interesting too. The bird didn't end up eating the entirety of the snail. So watch this. He just discarded that bit. I guess that's not a good part of it. And then the rest went down. Pretty cool to see how they use that specialized bill. And then back to flight. I had a little bit more sun now. The sun came out. So I really had to watch my light direction a little bit more at this point. It wasn't nearly as forgiving as the earlier light. You can see here it's pretty much full sun at this point, and it's getting a little bit later in the morning, so the light's getting pretty strong. But I had one more opportunity that was coming up. I didn't know it at this point. But it was going to work out quite nicely. So I just stayed with these birds, just kept watching them fly, kept my lens on them, and did my best. To capture what's about to happen. And then this is the shot to me. Light in the eye coming right at you, snail dripping with water. And then off he went to eat it. It was a nice close catch. Thankfully the bird turned into the light. And he went over to this field to eat it. And I didn't capture it on video, but a grackle actually came in and chased this thing off. The snail kite kept its snail, but it didn't get to eat it right there. And that was the end of my morning. It was an incredible morning, one of my first times getting to truly spend some time with these amazing species and capture them doing what they do best, feeding on those snails.